All right. So here we are in 2 Timothy. We're in chapter 1. And we found out last week through the advanced art of inductive Bible study who's writing this letter and who he's writing this letter to. The answer to that is Paul is writing this to Timothy. And boy, if you didn't have inductive Bible study, you would not know which end is up. So now that Paul has said, "Hi, Timothy," and he's wished a salutation of grace, mercy, and peace to you, we start to get into the letter itself. And he says here in verse 3, "I thank God, whom I serve with a clear conscience, the way my forefathers did, as I constantly remember you in my prayers night and day, longing to see you, even as I recall your tears, so that I may be filled with joy. For I'm mindful of the sincere faith within you, which first dwelt in your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice, and I'm sure that it's in you as well. For this reason, I remind you to kindle afresh the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For God has not given us a spirit of timidity, but of power and love and discipline." Now, I hope and expect we'll be able to get through those verses tonight as we consider what Paul is starting off his letter saying. So we're going to have to take verse 3 apart. And 4 right there, those two, they have the same idea. So, how am I going to do this? Well, I'll tell you what. One thing is we've got to get these subordinate clauses out of the way. So one of the subordinate clauses is, "whom I serve with a clear conscience the way my forefathers did."
Mm-hmm. Doesn't be there to make a complete sentence, in other words.
It's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But I want to get to the main idea. He says, "I thank God as I constantly remember you in my prayers night and day."
Mm-hmm.
So now we know what Paul's doing for Timothy. What is he doing?
He's praying for him.
Praying for him. Paul is praying for Timothy. And then he says in verse 4, "longing to see you."
He's encouraging him, isn't it?
Well, I think he wants to do that, but let's hold off on interpreting until we've observed enough.
Mm-hmm.
The rule in Bible study is you observe, 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 and that leads you to be able to interpret. So now what we want to do is observe a lot. So that's why I'm just kind of getting the sentence out and looking for these things. So first of all, he says, "I thank God as I constantly remember you in my prayers." So he's also thanking God for Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
He's also remembering him.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's nice to be remembered, not forgot.
And it says in verse 4, "longing to see you." And again, here's another subordinate clause. "Even as I recall your tears, so that I may be filled with joy." So he does recall his tears. Ooh, that's too much. Now that's interesting too. But the whole result is that he would be filled with joy. All right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, I want to go back here and look at these clauses here. Now, Paul thanks God. He says, whom I serve with a clear conscience, the way my forefathers did. Now, let me highlight this. We're looking at this clause here first. So Paul is saying then that he serves God with a clear conscience. Now, I'd like to ask, what does it mean to have a clean conscience or a clear conscience?
Distinguishes between right and wrong. The faculty of the soul which distinguishes between right and wrong and prompts one to choose the former and avoid the latter.
Mm.
Okay, so if your conscience is working right, you'll be able to tell the difference between right and wrong. And then your conscience will urge you to do what's right.
Yeah. Distinguishes between right and wrong and prompts one to choose the former, yeah, and
Okay,
avoid the latter, yeah.
right.
Mm.
All right. So Paul is talking about Timothy in these, and he's talking about himself, what he's doing. We've noted Paul is doing this towards Timothy, but he's also talking about what he does toward God. Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
And then, this is toward Timothy. Well, that's interesting.
There's something in there, in a way.
Well, a lot of it's about himself. If you look at that,
Mhm.
it's Paul who is constantly remembering him,
Mhm.
and he's praying for him,
Mhm.
and he's longing to see him.
Mhm.
But then he does say this about himself. I serve God with a clear conscience the way my forefathers did. So, how can we? I'm going to look up clear for a minute. Bright, luminous.
Pure.
I don't think my conscience is luminous.
My version has pure conscience.
Oh my gosh. I just lost
Oh,
everybody.
no.